Thank you both for being here. Let me start, Doug, with you. This is, the hysteria that has been generated across the political spectrum because the president did not insult or act like some sort of street corner thug with Vladimir Putin seems to have set off a universal cry of outrage that he was weak on communism. Excuse me, that goes back to a different era. Soft on communism and soft on Putin.
Soft on Russia, yeah. I may be the wrong guest to have on tonight, Lou, because I think the whole thing is ridiculous and hysterical. I'm a student of history. I saw FDR go to Yalta, and Churchill's there, and Stalin's there, and FDR consigns millions of people to their death in gulags because he gives Eastern Europe to Stalin, and they make monuments out of it in marble. They make bronze monuments today, and yet they get angry and hysterical because Donald Trump isn't saying the words they want him to say. And Obama, you mentioned Obama, in 2014, the Russians invade Crimea. In October, he goes to the Baltic states to send the message, we're tough, we're not going to stand for it. The Estonians love him because he's the first African-American president, but he mangles his speech. He mixes up the capital cities of the Baltic states. He calls an organization democratic that actually had worked for the Nazis. It broke the heart of the people in the Baltic states, and it sent the message to Putin, I don't care enough to even spend 30 minutes to vet my speeches. And you talk about weakness. I find this whole thing very hypocritical.
Sorry. How about you, Mark?
Listen, he didn't do what the experts say. He didn't do what the swamp says. He didn't do what the bureaucrats say. Good. That's what we're paying for. That's what we want him to do. You know, the whole point of a summit is to make peace, not more conflict.
Let me raise a question here. And I've already questioned the intelligence community of this country that seems to be bristling at the president's snub, if you will. But where were they during all of that? Why weren't they better prepared and understanding what was going on? They didn't. You can go through the list of failures. You can't name many successes. But the other thing that is extraordinary, successive presidents have had tremendous sanctions against Russia. We have been told for how many years, Doug, Mark? How many years has it been? We were told Russia's economy is about to collapse because we are tough. We keep applying sanctions. No one's explaining to the American people how Russia is still the most formidable foe, particularly when it comes to nuclear weapons, that this superpower nation of ours faces.
Yeah, and I looked through that Mueller stuff very carefully. I don't see the hard evidence there. So if the president's saying, let's hold up till we see some hard evidence. Can you imagine if Bush said, I don't see the hard evidence of the WMD. Let's wait a while, see what you can come up with.
What do you think, Doug? That would have changed history.
Yeah, it would. The thing that shocks me about it, Lou, is the Justice Department. They're like an independent branch of government. They don't take any advice or control from the congressional branch. And now they've got their own foreign policy. If they're so smart, why were they so dumb as to have a press conference a few days before the president's summit? That's traitorous. That's a good example of traitorous, in my humble opinion.
I couldn't agree with you more. Rosenstein is behaving like he's a complete lout. And he is bouncing in his chair, eager and enthusiastic and animated at just the very idea that he's in charge and Jeff Sessions is nowhere to be found. And yet this president, who has the power to say, declassify those documents, all of the FISA documents, as Devin Nunes, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, has requested, it is time to start rolling this thing back. Because a raid against the president is an unprecedented amount of power and force, and much of it nefarious in the deep state.
Yeah, and if the president was trying to tamper, if Putin was trying to meddle or tamper, he was no match for Strzok, McCabe, and those guys.
Yeah, but they can't manufacture the same outrage for them, can they, Doug?
No, and I'd say to people that are going to stand up for Donald Trump need to stand up for him when there's this kind of pressure, because this is a nothing. He's going to make real mistakes. What happens when he makes a real mistake if people abandon him over some nonsense and hysteria like this? I don't see.
Guys like Paul Ryan, for crying out loud, he is such a duplicitous and incompetent remainder residing in an office that he gave up but wants to still keep the furniture and his location for as long as possible. These are not friends of the president, no matter what.
No, and if you check the record, we've been through this every 3 months. Hysteria, this is it, he's finished, it's the worst thing ever, and then it's all forgotten about.
Doug, you get the last word here tonight.
Well, I just am glad for those people in the Trump family and for Donald Trump himself for taking on this whole mess and being willing to do it for his country, because he's not doing it for money, and he sure is not doing it for recognition. That's apparent.
Yeah, we owe him a lot of gratitude for having the guts to put up with all of this and the guts to lead the country directly in the way we should be headed, and that is toward a bright, prosperous future. Doug Wead, Mark Simone, thank you both for being with us.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lou.
Thank you. And that's it for us tonight. We thank you for being with us through the evening.